In our last video, we talked about ways to support those wrong answers to your questions. But what happens when students just flat out don't engage in your questioning? Well, we need to think of our kids as human beings. So first of all, we know that they might be having a bad day, or they could just simply not be interested in the lesson that you're providing, or maybe they're frustrated within their process. So when you ask a question and the room is just silent, it just is a terrible feeling. But we need to think, what the heck is going on in the first place? So first we need to ask ourselves, why? Why aren't students engaging? Well, it could be that they don't feel safe with the questions that you're asking. They might be worried about that wrong answer or providing a wrong answer or incorrect answer. Or sometimes they just didn't even prepare to give you the right answer, right? Maybe they didn't do their homework, or maybe they didn't think about it ahead of time. They were zoning out, so they didn't have that time to prepare. Or maybe they're really uncomfortable to think deeper. It's just not in their wheelhouse and they need a little more support than that. And again, they're humans, so different reasons are going on. Or it could just be that you dove too deep too quickly with your questioning. And then we need to think about, are there other things maybe going on that are blocking the students from engaging? Like maybe there's a language barrier, for example. When we can identify why students are not engaging, then we can address how to get them engaged. So we might be thinking about very specific individual needs, or we could be thinking of a class as a whole. So let's take a look at some strategies for positive participation during questioning. So the first one is, how can I scaffold my questioning? Remember, we talked about that too deep, too quickly. So we can start by modeling with lower level questionings or surface level questionings before diving a little deeper in order to build confidence and trust that students are feeling good about what they're responding to or good about where they're at. The other thing is safe practice comes with that, right? So if students are in smaller groups before they can share out, you're giving them time and practice to talk to each other and question, give an answer, right? I know that if I am discussing with somebody and they have the same answer as me, or maybe we can talk through it a little bit better, I know I would feel better before sharing out to the entire classroom. The second way is to give wait time. And we know how important wait time is in our classroom. And just a reminder, we know that it feels like forever sometimes with the wait time, right? So when we do that though, we're really giving students time to process. Every student is processing the information at different rates. They're taking it in differently, they're connecting differently, and it might take them a little longer to really make those deeper connections when you're asking questions. So make sure you're giving enough time without losing student interest. So that can be really tricky. When we push that wait time, I know it can feel like a long time, but it can be a blink of an eye for a student. So you just kind of have to carefully kind of monitor, their expressions to see what's going on. Especially when we're asking deeper questions, we need to allow students time to really ponder and consider and then make those connections. Another way to help participation in your classroom is to think about the modalities of learning and teaching. So you might ask a question and the idea that a student would give you an answer right back could happen, right? But another way you could do it is ask them to write it down first and then share out. Or you could have a one-on-one check-in with the student. Or maybe they can show something instead of telling it. Another way is to really think about empathy and how you're using that in your classroom. So you can look at an unengaged student and who maybe not answering your questions or maybe not engaging at all, and you can say, hey, I see you're having a tough time right now. Can you maybe tell me some more information about that? They may or may not be able to, but at least it's a first step in building that trust. Or you could say, in this assignment, what is the most interesting thing about this for you? So again, you're connecting with their personal interests in order to then provoke those deeper questions. Or maybe, you seem stuck. Can you tell me what point you got stuck? A lot of times students don't really know what to do when you ask them a question. So if you are asking them to identify a part in the process where they kind of stopped or there was a challenge or an obstacle, they might be able to address exactly what their needs are. The other thing that we need to consider is some questions are just too close to home or maybe too difficult for a student. Again, by modeling questioning strategies, starting at a more surface level is going to help, because then you can start to slowly and carefully probe into the deeper realm. And lastly, when we're thinking about any of these participation issues that are coming up in your classroom, you really need to reflect back on, did you build that trust and community to start with? If so, where is the snag? What's the holdup, right? What do you need to go back and work on in order to make sure that your students are supported? Check out our download, 9 Tricks to Try When Discussions Are Slow, which gives some great tips for successful questioning setups. Next up, we're going to talk about what happens when you don't know the answer.